Back at the legal level, Jasmine and I moved swiftly. We filed for divorce the morning after the gala, attaching evidence and timelines with meticulous precision. Alongside it, a motion to temporarily restrict Daniel's access to Ava was submitted, citing emotional instability and media exposure. Everything we did was clean, calculated, and above all, public record. It was a rainy Friday in Manhattan. The kind that soaked through your bones and made everyone look tired. I was on my 4th cup of coffee, pulling a double shift at the diner where I'd worked for years. Hands smelling like bleach and cheap syrup. At 2 in the morning, when most of the city was asleep or pretending to be, a man walked in with a little boy pressed close to his side. I didn't know his name yet, but the way he glanced around sharp, rushed, afraid to look vulnerable told me everything. He wore money like a second skin, a tailored coat, expensive watch, hair too perfectly out of place. But it was the boy I watched, not the man. The kid moved like each step cost him something. One hand glued to his right side, his face pale with a sheen of cold sweat. He didn't cry or complain, he just sat there. Quiet. And I knew, deep down, something was wrong. I brought them water and menus. My usual routine. But I kept my eyes on the boy's small hands shaking as he tried to lift the glass. His breathing was shallow, mouth pressed tight, like he was trying to hold something in. The father, Cole Davenport, though I didn't know it then, was whispering into his phone. Annoyed, I overheard fragments: ER visit, delayed tests, something about trusting the doctors at his hospital. As he stepped outside to take another call, the boy stayed behind, curled in the booth like a broken wing. I sat down across from him for just a moment, trying not to scare him. He said his name was Liam, and that he was okay. Just a little stomach pain. But I'd seen that look before. Years ago in nursing school, pain pushed too far. Too long. My gut screamed at me, louder than reason or rules. This wasn't nerves or bad pizza. The way he winced when shifting his leg. How he clutched his side. That yellow tint under his eyes, it wasn't right. I thought of every story I'd heard on overnight shifts from the paramedics who came in for coffee. And I knew what I was looking at. When Cole came back inside, I told him straight, if it were my kid, I wouldn't wait. He looked me up and down like I was background noise. Said they had an appointment in the morning. Told me to mind the coffee, not the medicine. But I didn't sit back. I walked into the kitchen, picked up the landline, and called 911 myself. I told them what I saw. No title, no license, just the truth. 10-year-old boy, suspected appendicitis, unstable vitals, needs transport now. I gave the address and stayed on the line until I saw flashing lights outside. Cole was furious. His words were clean, but the way he stared at me said everything he couldn't say with lawyers in the room. They took Liam on a stretcher, and just before the ambulance doors closed, I saw his tiny hand reach for mine. I squeezed it once and let go. I didn't expect thanks or headlines. I just didn't want a child to die on a cold diner seat while everyone trusted the wrong people. The next morning, Cole Davenport returned to the diner, dressed in another flawless suit. Face unravels. He stood by the counter for a moment before approaching, thanking me in a voice too measured to feel sincere. He said Liam had been rushed into emergency surgery and that the doctors confirmed it was a close call. Then he handed me a thick envelope, the kind that spoke louder than any gratitude. Inside was cash, too much to be casual, too little to be silence. When I told him I didn't want money, just acknowledgement of what really happened. He paused. That's when she entered, Vanessa Davenport, his wife, gliding through the diner like she was allergic to the air itself. She didn't sit, didn't smile, just nodded once and left the talking to her assistant. A woman named Madison Clark. Madison slid a small card across the table, saying they appreciated discretion and hoped I'd understand how delicate narratives could be. I understood perfectly. They didn't want the truth. They wanted a version that looked better under studio lights. That night, I watched the news with my daughter Emily and saw a polished segment celebrating the hospital's rapid response and the miraculous efforts of their elite pediatric team. They'd rewritten the story. I wasn't even a footnote. There were photos of the doctors, staged smiles in front of hospital wings and charity logos, with not a single mention of a diner or the woman who made the call. Emily turned to me, confused, asking why my name wasn't there. I didn't have an answer I could say out loud. It wasn't just about credit, it was about being seen. For once, I had done something that mattered, that changed the course of a child's life. And they had scrubbed me out like I was dirt on glass. It felt like I had vanished from my own story. Then came Ryan, my husband, who'd been distant for months. Suddenly started telling everyone at his job how his quick thinking helped save a billionaire's son. I overheard him on the phone, laughing, saying people were finally treating him like he mattered. He twisted the story until he was the hero, the calm man under pressure, the supportive husband who made the right call. I didn't say anything yet, but the truth started to burn behind my teeth. One evening, while doing laundry, I found his phone buzzing with messages. The contact was saved under a fake name, but I recognized the number from the card Madison had left behind. The messages were flirtatious, coded, layered with references only two people deep in a lie would understand. Photos of him at work, selfies with luxury cars, a comment about how she bought the narrative and you played it perfectly. My stomach dropped. He hadn't just betrayed me, he was part of the reason my name disappeared. Later that week, he brought home a legal document from Davenport's lawyers, a non-disclosure agreement wrapped in polite language and veiled threats. He told me it was a good deal, that we could pay off debts, maybe even take a vacation. But all I heard was the sound of someone trading my dignity for comfort. And the man trading it was the one I married. I refused to sign. His eyes flashed, voice rising in that way it always did when he knew he was losing control. He called me selfish, said I was choosing pride over our future. But I wasn't choosing pride. I was choosing to finally stop shrinking. Rock bottom didn't arrive with a crash, it came slowly. Like water rising beneath a door I thought was sealed shut. After I refused to sign the NDA, Ryan packed a bag and left without looking back, choosing the ease of Madison's world over the messiness of mine. He moved into a furnished apartment paid for with the commissions he earned from selling luxury cars to people like the Davenports. I stood alone in the doorway that night, feeling the silence settle around me like a second skin. Emily tried to stay strong, but teenagers aren't built for the kind of betrayal that creeps in from every direction. She watched the news cycle twist the narrative until people believed I was a waitress chasing clout from a billionaire's family. Anonymous online comments called me delusional. A liar. A woman desperate for attention. It stung more than I wanted to admit. Because lies have a way of sounding like truth when the right people repeat them. The diner owner tried to shield me from the worst of it. But even he couldn't stop the whispers from creeping into the morning rush. Regulars who once smiled now hesitated, offering pity instead of familiarity. I kept my head down, wiping counters that didn't need wiping, pretending not to hear the world shrinking around me. Somewhere in all that noise, something inside me hardened into resolve. A week after Ryan left, a woman walked into the diner during a slow afternoon, wearing a tailored black coat and an expression that didn't match her expensive clothes. She sat at the counter, studying me with a kind of quiet curiosity. When she finally introduced herself as Brooke Davenport, the younger sister of Cole, I felt a jolt run through me. She wasn't there for coffee. She was there because she wanted the version of events that her family refused to tell. Brooke didn't speak with the smooth detachment that marked the rest of her family. Instead, she confessed that she'd been reading internal emails and seeing how ruthlessly they had scrubbed me from the story. She said it with a hint of shame. Not for herself, but for the people who shared her last name. In her voice, I heard something I had not heard in weeks: sincerity without conditions. In the back booth, away from prying ears, she pulled out her phone and showed me the PR brief her family crafted. It laid out their plan line by line, structured like a story arc, with the hospital as the hero and Liam as the precious face of resilience. My part wasn't just minimized, it was intentionally erased. Looking at that document, I understood this wasn't an oversight, it was a strategy. Brooke admitted she'd been fighting her family's obsession with image for years. She had been pushed out of the foundation, sidelined, painted as the reckless sibling who didn't understand responsibility. There was a complicated bitterness in her, but also a kind of sharp intelligence that didn't need validation. She offered something unexpected: help from the inside. Her offer wasn't charity. It was born from her own fractures, her own desire to watch truth puncture the glossy shell the Davenports had built. She saw potential in my story, not as gossip, but as leverage. And she understood something: vital fighting power requires strategy, not just anger. In her gallery in Soho, under the dim lights that made every painting glow like a confession, I felt myself shifting. I wasn't just someone who had been wronged, I was someone who could fight back. We sat among sculptures and canvases, mapping out a plan with the precision of people who finally had nothing to lose. Each step felt like reclaiming a piece of my voice. I decided to confront the rot starting closest to home: Ryan. He had tangled himself so deeply in the narrative that he thought he owned part of it. I gathered the messages he sent to Madison, the recordings of him urging me to sign the NDA, the smug voice clips where he bragged about managing the situation. I organized every piece meticulously, the way I once organized medication charts in my abandoned nursing textbooks. When a luxury car event took place at his showroom, I knew it was the moment. He had posted about it nonstop, eager for attention, eager to be seen as someone rubbing shoulders with the elite. I uploaded the recordings anonymously during the peak of the event. Time to hit social media while he was standing under bright lights. Within minutes, phones buzzed throughout the room. Guests began murmuring, their gazes shifting from their champagne glasses to the man who thought he was invincible. His carefully crafted persona began to crumble in front of colleagues, clients, and the very people he wanted to impress. He tried to explain, but explanations were no match for proof. I watched from across the street, unseen, as the facade fell away. By the next morning, he had been suspended pending review. The dealership removed his face from their promotional materials, distancing themselves before the scandal could stain their brand. Debt collectors began calling again, knocking at a door he had once slammed in my face. The first domino had fallen, and I wasn't sorry. For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt something steady bloom in my chest: not vengeance, but clarity. If Ryan could be taken down with the truth, then so could the people who had erased me. The plan was no longer just about defending myself. It was about reclaiming the narrative they stole and making sure they couldn't steal from anyone else again. The Davenport Foundation Gala was held at their flagship hotel in Midtown, a sprawling glass monument to wealth and carefully curated benevolence. Inside, every detail had been designed to perfection: white orchids on mirrored tables, champagne towers lit from below, and a rotating screen above the stage that displayed smiling children in hospital gowns. This was their night to remind the city how generous they were, how noble their name remained. And at the center of it all, Vanessa Davenport stood like a queen in a gold column dress, basking in applause she hadn't earned. Behind the scenes, Brooke and I moved in silence, slipping through the staff corridors with the ease of people who no longer cared about permission. She wore black. No jewelry. Her hair pulled back, as if shedding every trace of the family name she was about to help destroy. We had rehearsed this a dozen times, mapped every cable and cue until we could do it blindfolded. Still, my hands trembled as I handed the final video file to Emily, who waited at the tech table in the rear corner. Emily looked up at me with a mixture of fear and something else, conviction. She had helped encode the footage, double-checked the backup, made sure the file would replace the original just seconds before showtime. I hadn't asked her to do this, but she had insisted, not for me, but because she wanted to live in a world where people didn't get erased for telling the truth. Vanessa stepped onto the stage just before 9, her smile dazzling under the spotlights. She introduced the final video of the night, a tribute to resilience and the miracle of modern care. The lights dimmed, and the room fell silent as the screen began to glow. But what played was not the curated hospital montage their PR team had designed. The first frame was grainy security footage from the diner, time-stamped and real. It showed me rushing toward the booth, kneeling beside Liam, pointing to the phone. My voice played over the speakers, calm but urgent, as I spoke to the 911 dispatcher, describing his symptoms, refusing to let him be another missed call. The audio cut to the moment Cole brushed me off, and then to the ambulance lights flashing outside the diner's fogged windows. Gasps rippled through the ballroom like a gust of wind through glass. Then came the second clip, recorded audio from Madison Clark's phone, the same phone she once used to flirt with my husband. Vanessa's voice was unmistakable, clipped and cold, ordering her to make sure the waitress never becomes part of the story. She called me a liability, a threat to the narrative. She said the media didn't need messy faces and aprons. Somewhere near the stage, I saw Cole stiffen, his jaw clenched as the words filled the air. He had never heard this recording. His mask didn't crack, but his hand tightened on the stem of his glass until the crystal nearly snapped. The audience murmured louder, confused and then angry. The illusion unraveling in real time. Liam sat at a reserved table with a nanny beside him, and even from a distance, I could see his eyes widen. His gaze locked on the screen, then darted across the room until it found me standing near the back, partially hidden behind a pillar. He mouthed something. I couldn't hear it, but I felt the recognition bloom in his face like a quiet apology. For a second, he forgot everyone else. Reporters moved fast, pushing forward, shouting questions toward the stage. One demanded to know whether the foundation had knowingly misled the public. Another asked if the story had been falsified to protect hospital donors. Vanessa tried to speak, but her voice faltered. And that was all it took. In silence, Madison stepped up to the edge of the platform and spoke directly into a nearby microphone. She confirmed the audio's authenticity. She explained how she had been instructed to draft the press release, fabricate quotes from doctors, and bury my name in favor of a cleaner story. Her voice didn't shake. She didn't look at Vanessa, only at Cole. For the first time, Cole didn't move to control the narrative. He stood motionless, watching as everything he'd built, every spotless article, every polished interview turned brittle and cracked. He looked at Liam, then at me, and something in his face shifted. Not guilt, not regret, just the knowledge that this moment couldn't be undone. When the video ended, the room didn't erupt, it collapsed. Donors left quietly, one by one, clutching purses and programs, avoiding eye contact. The orchestra stopped playing without being told. Vanessa left the stage, followed by flashing cameras and the beginning of headlines she wouldn't control. And in that heavy, beautiful silence, I exhaled for the first time in months. In the days that followed, Cole Davenport stepped down from his position at the foundation under public pressure and legal scrutiny. A quiet investigation into hospital mismanagement was launched, and though charges weren't announced, settlements were paid behind closed doors. Cole issued a statement acknowledging my actions, calling me instrumental in saving Liam's life. But it was too late to look noble. The story had already rewritten itself without the need for PR handlers. Vanessa disappeared from the spotlight. Her name dropped from multiple campaigns and charity boards in a matter of days. Brands distanced themselves, citing a misalignment of values, and the foundation's donations plummeted. She was last seen leaving a private clinic in Europe, where people go to recover not from illness, but from public disgrace. She had once built her world on being seen. Now, no one wanted to look at her. Ryan wasn't spared either. The dealership fired him after internal review, and the financial records I'd quietly submitted raised flags about fraud and evasion. A custody hearing followed, and the court saw through his rehearsed charm. He lost all visitation rights until further notice. When I looked at him across the courtroom, he wouldn't meet my eyes. Madison cut a deal for leniency, trading her digital archives for immunity and a chance to quietly restart her life elsewhere. She vanished from the tabloids before they had a chance to turn on her. I didn't care where she ended up. Her role in my story was over. One morning, Liam walked into the diner with a small paper bag in hand and a shy smile. He gave me a thank you card, written in crooked handwriting, and said his scar made him feel like a superhero. I watched Emily bring him a milkshake, her eyes brighter than I'd seen in months. In that moment, the noise faded, and I finally felt peace. There are victories the world won't celebrate, the kind that don't come with headlines or applause. But sometimes, the loudest justice is the kind that comes in quiet waves, washing the lies away. If you've ever felt invisible after doing the right thing, remember, truth has its own gravity, and one day, those who erased you will have nowhere left to hide. If this story moved something in you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Leave a comment. Tell me where you're watching from. And subscribe so you never miss another voice that refuses to stay silent.